Welcome to the Peace and Possibilities podcast. This is Julie Bruns, and you are about to be inspired. I am so excited to share my conversations with amazing people from all walks of life who figured out how to be happy, peaceful, and content doing work they love and making the world a better place so that you can see what's possible for your life. I can't wait to hear what you think. Send me an email and let me know one thing you're taking away from this episode. And never forget, anything really is possible. All right, welcome everyone. My guest this week is Stephanie Hart. And Stephanie and I have never chatted before, which is one of my favorite things to do, like just to jump on and start to get to know people. But Stephanie was on a CEO roundtable discussion for an organization that I'm part of called Female Strong. And YAY is a Young Entrepreneurs Academy that I have volunteered and taught for over the last several months. And Stephanie came on, and I don't know if you know that, Stephanie, but that's why I was on the call. And Stephanie was talking about her business. And when I saw all the ladies on the call that night, I was like, these are all business owners in Chicago, and I'm in Chicago too, which is awesome. And I love to, meet new people in Chicago, especially entrepreneurs. So I said, I reached out and Stephanie wanted to be on my podcast. So thanks for joining, Stephanie.
Well, thank you for having me, Julie. This is fun. Yay.
Good. I'm glad. So this podcast is all about, as I'm sure you saw, talking to people who love what they do. And that's really my only prerequisite to this, because people need to see that it's possible and they need to meet people of all ages. I say that because it's like someone might figure it out at 22. I mean, I know that's not as common. But people are loving what they do all throughout their lives. And the more people can see different versions of that, to me, the better, because then we can all see anything really is possible. So that's what we're talking about today. So tell everyone what you do, the bakery that you founded. And I don't know what you did before that, or if this has been a lifelong thing for you. So tell everyone about that, and then we'll jump into the questions.
Hi, I'm honored to be here. And I also participate in YAY. Through a woman, Diana Connolly, who knew me in my previous business, in my previous life before Brown Sugar Bakery. So I am a serial entrepreneur. I really never intended to have a job, and found out the word consultant when I was 18 and kind of bummed through becoming a real estate. I sold real estate for a little while, figured out that I loved sales, but I didn't want to do that. Went into telemarketing and learned a whole lot in telemarketing, learned a lot about how to sell, how to do, ended up being a consultant for a large telemarketing group, and then went into technology. I began I guess you would call it a personnel company for technology. Did that for 20 years. That's how I met Diana Connolly on a project with CPS. And the bigger we got in that business, the more I didn't like it. I don't like a lot of restrictions. And when you work with big corporate clients, especially in the 80s and 90s, it was a little different then. You needed to dress a certain way, look a certain way, and present in a certain way. And that was difficult for me to sustain over time, just because I'm a real entrepreneur. I want to kind of do things my way. And even if that means messing up or doing the wrong thing, it's kind of what I wanted to do. So long story short, during the last of my technology business, literally, I started missing my grandmother. I was traveling all over the country, homeschooling my daughter in between time, and just really not liking what I was doing anymore. I didn't want to travel, although it was a great opportunity for my daughter to come with me on a lot of trips. I was away from home pretty much Monday through Friday. And also I wanted food that made me comfortable and that I loved. And so every time I would go to a new city, I would look for cakes that were the cakes that I could not find in Chicago that reminded me of my grandma. And I could not find them, not in Florida, not in New York City, not in LA, not in, Kentucky. Like, if you can't find it in Kentucky and Mississippi, in Dothan, Alabama, I couldn't find a cake like my grandmother's. And so I decided maybe it's becoming a lost art. And I began trying to recreate the flavor in my head, right? And that took a long time and a whole lot of mistakes. And I want to say this because you brought up a good point in the opening of loving what you do and being at different ages. I'm 60 now. I'll be 60 in July. I'm not 60 yet, but almost 60. And I'm celebrating being 60. 60 isn't what it used to be. And I want to encourage people that this business will be 20 years old, Brown Sugar Bakery. So I created this business in my 40s. And that's important for people to know. Like, we kind of, especially with social media, we put a real emphasis on being young and being gorgeous. But what's being missed is that I'm gorgeous and I'm going to be 60. 60 is not a grandma, honey. So, I feel like I could start a business right now today. So I want to encourage people that if you have an idea, it's definitely not too late. So don't let folks fool you. But long story short, I worked really hard to get this flavor down. And when I got it down and I was satisfied with the cake and started sharing only one cake, pineapple coconut cake, man, the reaction was just really super overwhelming. Like literally people were emotional about the food. Like when I say emotional, I'd share a cake and, somebody would come to me crying, talking about this relative that used to make this and they haven't had this feeling since when. And so I started expanding and teaching myself other flavors. And then I just said, let me try it out. So I went into a test kitchen in the back of a railroad. This was not cute. This was not funded. This was, really, I don't even think you could call it bootstrap because I didn't have boots. So literally we went in the side of a railroad and a lady that made some sauce, and I used her kitchen at night and started creating these recipes. And I began selling slices of cakes to a famous Chicago chicken franchise called Harold's Chicken. And, I didn't even know that you had to have an 800 number. So a food inspector caught me one day and said, you got to put an 800 number on this cake so we can reach you directly in case there's ever a problem. So I did. And that phone started ringing off the hook. And I didn't understand at first why people were calling, but they were calling because a particular location would be out of cake. So in 2002, after about a year of experimenting around, a year and a half, because I didn't start until June of 2002, I opened up a little store, and it was terrifying and hard and probably a big mistake because now I'm really working. Like, I thought traveling was hard, but mopping floors is harder, right? Sitting in the airport, reading a book. Oh my God, I used to be so upset sitting in the airport and how, planes are late and am I going to get home in time and all that. But now I'm scrubbing floors, washing dishes, and making cakes, and really learning a new type of business, which is a consumer business and dealing with customers. But what I found, the love of that was the impact that I was able to have. And that's really what I love about business in general, and this business in particular, is that I get a quick return on my investment. I put time into something, and then customers tell you really quickly whether they like it or not. And I like that. And if they like it, you're rewarded. And if they don't like it, you take your hit on the chin and you go back and you do something else. I like that quick return. In the corporate environment, it was months before someone said whether they liked it or didn't like it and all of that. And I just, that's not my best. Do you like this? Yay. Mm-hmm. Also from a marketing standpoint, it was exciting for me because there was just no lying. I mean, if I'm the best, it comes across right now that I'm the best in how you react to my product. And if I'm not the best, it comes across right now. And then I can take action. I'm action oriented, and I like that. So that's really the humble beginnings of Brown Sugar Bakery. And I mean, the stories, the bootstrapping, finally I got boots. I didn't get boots until like 2007. So in 2007, when I opened my second location on the street, because literally my first location, somebody bought the building and said that I could not stay. They didn't want my money because they were going to open up a bakery. And I was like, girl, you're going to burn in hell, but that's okay. We'll see about it. And literally so broke that we pushed 4 blocks. We pushed my equipment down the street because I couldn't afford a truck. And literally the day I finally opened up at 328 East 75th Street, which is my flagship store now, my car was being repossessed out the back, girl. It was a whole lot. Opening the door, car getting repossessed. I decided that, if I took my car back, then it's not actually repossessed and that won't be on my credit. So I fought with the repossession guy. He wants his money to repossess and I'm in the car. He's trying to get me out of the car. I'm like, this isn't going to happen. I drive the car back to the dealer. Just crazy stuff. Being an entrepreneur, all the stuff that really is, that goes into being, I think, what you would consider, I guess, self-made. I didn't have any help. I didn't have any help from banks. Hopefully those kinds of things are changing in my community. I have a really loud mouth and, businesses are getting funded in my community. But back then we tried to buy that building. No one would loan us the money. My girlfriend was signing for me. She had an 800 credit score and they still didn't want to loan us the money to buy the building. So, but over the years, these 20 years, things have gotten better. I've gotten an opportunity to be a part of a community of businesses that are strong, that have been there for a while, that are growing. We're attracting new businesses, and I would consider a thriving corridor on 75th Street. And I'm really super proud to be part of that, to be part of busting up the notions of what can happen in an African-American community, from who can come visit us to outdoor seating to just anything you tell me is limited. That's what I want to do. Just tie that period.
Well, what I'm hearing you say is it's like, well, first of all, it's a really cool story. And the fact that you said, you started at 40 and it's just proof that it doesn't matter what age you are, if you're loving it and you want to start something in 60, please, who's to say you can't? And especially, I'm like you, if someone says you can't, it's like, well, wait a minute, I'm going to show you how I will do it. But I love that you created the thing that you were missing in all those cities trying to find. You created it because you wanted something, for comfort. And then the exact thing that you wanted to feel and experience was what other people were feeling and experience when they had your pineapple coconut cake. That they were like getting emotional about it, which is what you were trying to connect to your grandma and something that would comfort you. And then you created that for other people, which is obviously one of the telltale signs of a good entrepreneur is actually taking a problem that needs to be solved and creating a solution to it. And then being able to say, okay, now I can do this. Now I just did this. And here's how I did it. So kudos to you.
Well, thank you. It's a lot of fun. And, creating this line of cakes, they're just all lovely ladies. They're all memories of my childhood, mostly generated by the women in my life, whether it be my grandmother or other women. That cakes, when I was small, they were revered in my community. I remember that there was this one lady that made this red velvet cake. I didn't get any until I was about 14, honey. You just were not good enough for that cake until you ate the store-bought cake. Miss McElroy's cake, don't even look at it because you're not worthy yet, right? And I remember when I first had this red velvet cake that everybody had been talking about, and I had other red velvet cake, but not that one that my grandmother and her friends enjoyed, right? And when I first got it, I was like, heck, this thing is so good. And so those are the kind of memories that, drove me in recreating this lineup. And I call them girls. My cakes are girls, honey. They all have names and personalities, and then finally the cake that I did not grow up with, that was a Chicago favorite and the most emotional cake, was the hardest for me to develop. Caramel is, and I say caramel, C-A-R-M-E-L, because honey, my caramel has way more butter than caramel, okay? It's smooth, it is luscious, and it took a lot to create. It took a lot out of me, including a plane trip to Gould, Arkansas, to actually sit with somebody to teach me actually how to do it, because I could not recreate the recipe. And of course, when I got in that lady's kitchen, there was just one little something that she was doing that was natural for her to do, because she was in her 70s then, and she had been making caramel all her life, that wasn't translated in the recipe. So
of course,
that started me, just that little thing, you know what I mean? Just that little thing. And so when I got that right, that's really when I was able to push this to a business, because I will tell you that although I love pineapple coconut cake, red velvet, German chocolate, in the city of Chicago, caramel cake is about 65% of my sales.
Oh, okay. So you did the thing that you were uncomfortable doing, but it obviously had a good impact because your business thrived from it. That's smart. That's also,
I needed to make, when you ask a person, when people tell you, oh my God, this cake is wonderful, but I want a caramel cake.
yeah, that's what everyone kept saying.
Yeah. And so you have to do what people want. That's part of it. You do have to supply a product that people want. And although pineapple coconut cake is still my favorite cake, and it is a popular cake at the bakery, it's honestly the cake that kind of put me on the map before caramel cake, because it is old fashioned and not a lot of people make it. So the first cake that I ever got publicity around was the pineapple coconut cake. But ultimately, my sales were driven by being able to master a really difficult cake, and that's the caramel cake.
Oh my gosh, so cool. All right, so I was going to ask you about how you became successful, but I've already got all that, because you were talking about no one's going to tell me no, and you were trying to figure out what you could do with getting that store and getting your car back and all that grit and all that perseverance. Like, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to figure this out. When people ask you, I'm sure that you get this now because you have been in business for over 20 years now. What advice do you give people that say, I want to start a business, or I want to be my own boss? What do you say to them?
One, I think that people have to step back. So from being an entrepreneur in the late 70s, 80s, when people didn't know what is an entrepreneur, right? To now, it's sort of glorified. When I decided I wanted to be an entrepreneur, it wasn't so glorified. It was, why don't you just want to go work at IBM? What is wrong with you? Right? It was the corporate job was better. And do you have a business card? And where's your office? And there was no virtual offices. You really had to work in a different kind of way. Not that you don't have to work now. But I'll ask people when they say that, do you really want to do this? Because any type of venture on your own means, one, you got to like being on your own. If you don't like being on your own, it might not be for you. And that's okay, because I talk heavily about entrepreneurship, right? There are people that, you got to know your personality, right? And if your personality is an entrepreneur, that's what you should become. If you are an integrator, find a visionary and hook up with and make the best of who you are. Everybody can't be, Steve Jobs, but somebody's got to be, what was his name? Wozniak. He was just as integral, right? He wasn't the visionary, but he's actually the person that really made things happen from another side. So he didn't take all the upfront risk, but he had a whole lot of upside in doing what he was good at. So I really ask people to look at that, because if honestly, to be a successful entrepreneur, you're going to fail. So if you're not able to stand up and wipe your face and say, so what? It might not be for you, because you are going to fail. Like, matter of fact, I tell people fail, people say, oh, fail forward. That's super cute. I say fail fast, because girl, it's going to happen. Fail, get it out the way. So that you can move on, because you are going to fail, right? So if you're not a person who likes no, or who can deal with no, I'm going to tell you, one of the things I tell people is success is in the middle of a room full of it, okay? With the SH in front of it.
Okay. Each
piece needs to be removed, identified, which means you're going to have to sniff it, look at it, and say what kind of ish it is, and put it aside, so that when you come against that ish again, you can identify it. And then finally, you get to this place where it's not so much of that, right? Because now when you see it coming, you're like, okay, well, that's that over there, and that goes over there, and you're able to function. But if you don't want to get dirty, you might not want to do this. And it's okay. Like, entrepreneurs need integrators. I work with a great team of people. I would not be who I am without people who are separate, less personal, have different experiences that bring to my crazy ideas to make something happen. So there's room for everybody.
Agree. I totally agree. What now that you know what you know, like you can look back and you are still building, and you're still successful, and you're still coming up with great ideas, and loving the entrepreneurial spirit and what you're creating. Is there anything you wish you'd learned earlier in your career or in your life, looking back?
I think that some of the things that, when I became a mother, I was 30 and already an entrepreneur about 8 years, solidly 8 years in. And I wish that, part of my upbringing had been more around the impact of how you think, right? Like, we talk about manifesting now, but are you manifesting? Or I heard this word the other day, are you manifesting? What you think about is so absolutely important and so absolutely understated. And it's absolutely what'll get you through. Like the thoughts you think will become what you actually eventually get, right? And how long you can hold on to those thoughts. And we don't do any kind of mind training. So I wish I had learned these mind tricks now. Like now I'm almost immovable, right? Like in a good way, immovable. Like I'm listening, but if you're talking Yakadak, I don't really hear you. Like literally, I can parse out all that negativity. But when I was in my 20s, it was difficult. I remember we had somebody, I lived in a basement. I had an office downtown on Michigan Avenue, but I lived in the basement of an apartment building. And they came and they were like, well, if you're an entrepreneur, Success Magazine had come out by then, girl, they brought the Success Magazine. And they were like, well, if you were doing this right, would you be living in a basement? And I remember how bad that hurt me, right? And for weeks, I thought about it. I just wouldn't hold any of that stuff anymore. Like folks that say that kind of stuff, they don't know, right? They don't know. Like, when you meet a real entrepreneur that has been successful, I don't care if it's Branson, name any of them. They got stories for you of the dirt, the grit. I mean, they sit around and laugh about it now, but everybody's gone through that. So that was part of what made me. But I would say mind training, understanding how important it is, the thoughts that you have. We just don't spend enough time on that. We do a lot more now, but if I was going back, I'd be like, girl, you the best. Tell yourself, get in the mirror, lift yourself up. Don't let nobody talk. All of that I do now, I would do then. And I did.
I totally agree. I didn't, that's why I wrote my book and I have a chapter in the book on manifestation for the same reason. It wasn't, I was taught work hard and then you'll get there. You just have to be willing to work hard. Okay. I've been working hard my whole life. There's certain things I still don't have. Why is that? Oh, I know it's not about the work because I've done that. It was about what I was telling myself, that I wasn't enough, that I needed to do more, that I'm not going to be able to have it easy unless I'm really, really suffering and struggling. It's like, no, those were all thoughts I was telling myself that weren't necessarily true. And they weren't really helping me. I mean, they taught me how to be a hard worker, but they certainly didn't make anything easy for me. Or it's just the mind training, the mindset work. I'm so glad, like you, that it's such a more common thing to think about and talk about now. And it used to be, even like 5 or 10 years ago, when you talk about it, people like growth mindset, manifesting, figuring out, like it was still
yeah,
that's all, that sounds good in theory, but like just go ahead and work over there. It's like there's so much. And although the people, like you said, the successful people that you really study are doing all of that work behind the scenes, they believed it. They didn't listen like you to the naysayers and the people that were saying like, how are you going to do that? And who do you think you are? And it's going to be tough, or when it is tough, you just quit. No, everyone along the way had all that. And then they kept going and telling themselves, no, you know what? That's not going to be me. I'm going to do something different, which is why they ended up being successful. They didn't just get lucky. They just kept doing it, even though.
And that's a great word, isn't it? Luck. I've learned how to embrace that. And I taught my daughter that luck favors the prepared, period. Like you prepare. And so by the time I was 30, I was really into it. And I was really an eyeball, I will tell you, in my 30s. So we're talking like, 19, early 90s. Man, when I was eating up this information, people thought I was really nuts, right? They'd come over and my daughter would be taking a nap and they would hear meditations playing. She fell asleep to meditations, visualization. Shakti Gawan had this tape and my daughter would put it on, and she would float to sleep in a pink bubble. And everyone thought that, what are you doing? But I just wanted her to feel like she had control. So even though I didn't go as far as I could have gone with her, she's further. Like now, if I could go back with my own child, I would limit as a parent, and it would be difficult now, I would totally limit what comes in. And we didn't have a television, but even magazines and input about what a woman should look like, what a woman should do. It helped that I didn't send her to school until she was like 9, because that sheltered her. She had her own thoughts. She already knew she wanted to be an opera singer by the time she was 5, and nobody got to tell her that was stupid until she was 10. And, you know, by then you're 10 and you have me as a mom that's like, you're great, you're great, you're great, you're great, you're great, like 900 times, right?
Yeah, it's already there.
But yeah, I still didn't realize the impact. There's so much stuff, like just sitting down and watching. I recently watched a television show that had commercials. You don't have to have commercials anymore. And I was like, wow, like, oh my God, like you're sick in 30 minutes because of all the diseases that I didn't even know. There's so many new diseases out here, girl, I didn't even know they existed, and medications for them that all will make you commit suicide if you're listening to the side effects. Like, that's the kind of stuff I don't want to deal with. Or now I deal with people saying that I'm not up on what goes on in the world, and I'm not, because, you know, literally, if I can't do something about it, then it's best to me just to get some cakes made, so that when the rest of the people that can't do nothing about it, they can have some cake and feel better, honey.
I'm with you. I haven't watched the news in 6-7 years. I mean, I really wasn't watching it a lot before. I never watched it before I went to sleep. I mean, my kids are in their 20s now. I never, ever watched it at 10 o'clock at night before I went to sleep. I'm like, why would I put that in my mind right before I go to sleep, to be in my subconscious? Why would I do that? And I have friends that follow it and want to be informed. And I don't necessarily not want to be informed. I just, if there's something really I need to know about, my husband or someone will tell me about it eventually. Or I'm out in the real world talking to people and I'll hear about things. But like you said, I can't do anything about it. And I'm just going to fret and stress out and be sad and I'd rather create and put good things out there. And change in that way, as opposed to just talking about how bad everything is or whatever. It's not changing anything. So either do something about it, let's talk about it and do something about it, or let's not talk about it. Let's not have it monopolize our conversations. Let's talk about some other great things that are happening. So you can get like more of that good stuff in your brain. Yeah.
And knowing how important that is just way more valuable than people still realize. Like, what you tell yourself and what you tell yourself comes in a lot of ways. Like you said, what you take in subconsciously, you are telling yourself this, right? And so I battle against that a lot, like in my neighborhoods. People are like, girl, don't you know what kind of neighborhood you're in? I'm like, the kind that houses great businesses, the kind that you're in to buy this wonderful cake. That's where I'm at, right? And, you know, people say, oh, that's like, you know, you're in some kind of imaginary world. You know, take off your rose-colored glasses. And I'm like, no, I tint all my glasses rose-colored. Like every single pair that I own are rose-colored, right? And you know, it's a scientific thing. So science, you know, I tell people, just because you don't believe in the stuff I'm talking about, you don't need, gravity doesn't need you to believe in it, period. And that's my favorite comeback when people say, oh, you're out there. Girl, gravity does not care what you think. It just does not. It doesn't ask you. It doesn't need your approval. It doesn't need your validation. And guess what? Neither do I.
I love that too. I read that something about gravity probably in the last year or somewhere too. Same thing. Whether you believe it or not, it exists. You can't deny it. It's going to happen. It's there.
You can deny it, and then you pay the price.
Exactly.
You can deny it.
Try. Yeah.
You can deny gravity. And that's what I tell people. What you don't realize is that when you're not in some kind of control of your thoughts, you do not have to meditate. You don't. Right. You don't have to meditate. Right. You just pay a price for not meditating.
Right. Right. I know. I was talking about it with some clients recently about meditation, and this guy said to me, you know, like, I tried it. I don't really feel that different afterwards. I tried it once or twice. I'm like, well, that's just like anything. You can try it once or twice and you'll feel a little bit better. Is it going to impact your life right then and there? Not so much. But if you keep doing it, just practice, you can have all these benefits. You can not do it and not have all these benefits, but doesn't this look better over here with all this less anxiety and better sleep and better health and all these other things? And like you said, there's science around all of it now, which makes it so much easier to talk about it, because now people can see there's studies from 15 years ago now. There's so much more research in the last even 5 years but people have been studying it for decades, obviously. But now the real science, I mean, it's not just in one article anymore, it's everywhere. And there's no denying it. And they're studying your brain and how it changes with things you're thinking and energy and all that other stuff. I love talking about it because it's amazing, but you're right. If I don't believe it, okay, you don't have to believe it. It doesn't mean it's not real. It's happening.
Yeah, I mean, lots of things that we don't know about. I mean, and I'm so thankful that, I don't have to think about everything that is real. Like, I don't know how many times I breathe in a minute. Somebody could take care of it, but I'm not thinking about that, right? My brain is doing that without me doing anything, right? And so if I can breathe, then this information is coming in. If I'm not in control of that to some extent, that just doesn't make sense, right?
Of course. Yeah, it's fascinating. Okay, I have two final questions for you. You can answer them both or one, you pick. So what's the greatest gift? This is you bragging. What's the greatest gift you offer the world every day? And what's one thing new you're taking away from our conversation today?
I think the greatest gift that I get to give the world is just a little bit of happiness. Like, I really work hard to engineer a product that you cannot be tasting my cake and be angry at the same time. I mean, it takes over. There is a reaction that happens when we eat certain things, and sweets and dessert are definitely a reaction. So I feel like, doing a super good job at making desserts that create memories for people, like that memory, what you think about when you're eating something that is wonderful is good. And, that's what I get to do. And I celebrate that every day. And I think that what I take away from this conversation is just that, I am young and I am still motivated and I am still excited. And I'm still learning every day, and I still have so much more that I'm going to accomplish. So it's always exciting to have this kind of exchange, because I leave this feeling charged, right? Feeling full, feeling like, all right, I'm ready.
What else? I feel the same way, which is why I love having the conversations, because you get to talk about people that are doing it, not talking about it, not saying how it can't be done. But this is what I'm doing. I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to share it, and I'm going to do more of it. And it is exciting, and you get energy from people like that. So that's why you're here today. So I really appreciate talking to you and learning about your cakes. I can't wait to try them. People want to order them. Can they order online, or do they have to go to the store? There's a store in Navy Pier now?
There's a store at Navy Pier. Navy Pier is a type of store that is a subset. It's mostly cupcakes, and I love my Navy Pier store because it exposes people. But if you get a chance, you want to come to 75th Street, where everything is. And you can order certain cakes online. In the next coming months, we will be expanding. The caramel cake is available online. And last year we had the honor of having Vice President Kamala Harris come to the bakery, and she ordered German chocolate cake. And so we now sell the German chocolate online as well. But my entire line by the end of March will be available for shipping nationwide. Those are the two cakes I ship nationwide right now. And I'm working with my community to develop a separate company that is, pretty much will serve all the businesses in my community, called Soul Delivery, where we'll be able to deliver products from 75th Street. We've been getting a lot of press on 75th Street, not just my business, but all the businesses, from Lim's Barbecue to Soul Vegetarian, Five Loaves Eatery. And we want to develop a delivery service. So it's almost done. They're getting close to where we'll be delivering things from 75th Street across the city.
That's awesome. That's another cool, new idea. Like everyone else is delivering. Why not do this for your community? And that's really cool. Good for you. Good for you for doing things that are improving people's lives and happiness. And that's what it's all about, in my opinion.
Yay.
Yeah, thanks, Stephanie. It was really a pleasure talking to you. I'm really excited to try the pineapple coconut. I love anything coconut and pineapple, and I'm gonna try the caramel one at some point too. So I'll be in there and maybe do a sample or little pieces or something. You have little mini cakes, or do you just big ones?
We have smaller cakes, and actually, if you're gonna go to Navy Pier, you can let me know a couple days ahead. I'll make sure that they have the pineapple coconut by the slice. They always have slices of caramel cake. and pineapple coconut pretty regularly because it's still a really popular cake. So we have our best flavors in cake slices at the pier. And then we have all our cupcakes.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I can't wait to share this with everyone, and they can learn more about Brown Sugar Bakery and obviously go to your website. And
brownsugarbakerychicago.com. Yay.
Oh, I love the name too. Well, thank you, Stephanie. It's been really cool talking to you and learning about your story. And hopefully this isn't our last conversation.
Okay. Thank you.
Take care. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. I hope you loved this episode. Don't forget to like us, subscribe, review, and share it. I hope you were truly inspired. And for a little more inspiration, don't forget to pick up my book, Peace, Possibilities, and Perspective: 8 Secrets to Serenity and Satisfaction in Your Life and Career. I can't wait to get you love in your life.